Hey guys, for this video today, I will be talking about why I think it's time for Major League Baseball to expand the postseason. Now, before I go any further, I just want to let you all know that this video will be essentially a podcast. There will be no visuals in this video whatsoever. And I just thought I'd let you all know that just in case anybody's expecting any visuals of any kind, there will not be any in this video because it'll be essentially a podcast today for this specific video. But anyways, I want to talk about why I think it's time for Major League Baseball to expand the postseason, because I don't know about you viewers out there who may be watching this video, but I really enjoy watching playoff baseball. When these teams are fighting to stay alive and keep their championship hopes alive, it creates an even more competitive baseball game to watch, and it's just so much better to watch than regular season baseball. These teams are being pushed to their limits to win the World Series and to be baseball's greatest team. And playoff baseball is so damn good and so damn exciting to watch. I love it. And I just don't understand why, at least from my point of view, why they don't expand the postseason even more. Because to me, that is the best baseball you can watch. Playoff baseball, Major League Baseball at its finest, where you see the best of the best come together, and the games are nail biters a lot of times. And the pitching is incredible. The amount of home runs you see, it's really great TV to watch. It is great baseball, and it's the best baseball you can watch, at least in my opinion. And for myself, I believe that baseball playoffs should be expanded in Major League Baseball because I don't only think that it would be even more great baseball to watch, but I actually believe that there would be a huge financial payoff for Major League Baseball if they did this. And I will get to that later on in the video. Now, what I want to do real quick is I want to talk about how the baseball playoff formats have been in Major League Baseball before I go any further. So, as far as I know, and by the way, just for the record, I'm not the most knowledgeable regarding baseball as a sport. So if there's anything like when they switch to their current playoff format or anything that I'm incorrect on, please feel free to correct me. I would really appreciate it. But anyways, for the longest time, as far as I know, I think it was a playoff format that had lasted for decades. But the way it used to work before was you would have the three division winners in each league qualify for the playoffs automatically, and the highest seeded team that did not win a division was considered the wild card team. And the wild card team would take the fourth spot, and those four teams in each league would go to the divisional series, and then of course the winners moved on to the championship series, and then of course you had the World Series, So about 5 to 7 years ago, I don't know when exactly they switched to the new format, but around somewhere between 2012 and 2014, it might have even been 2015. I think it was 2014 if I remember correctly, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But what they've done in the past 5 or so years is they've switched to a new playoff format where instead of one wild card team making the postseason, now you have two teams that make the postseason. Or sorry, two wild card teams to be specific, that make the postseason. So you have an extra team in each league that qualifies for the playoffs. However, what Major League Baseball does now is by adding one extra team to the playoffs in each league, what they now have is a special single game knockout called the wild card game. It's a single elimination game. You win, you move on. You lose, your season is over. So the two wild card teams in each league play in a wild card game now, and the winner of that game moves on to the divisional series, and the loser's season is over. So after making it to a 163rd game, if they lose, that game is over. Their whole season is finished. They're out. And although I totally agree with those who say that adding a couple of extra teams to the playoffs now has been a great addition, which I do agree 100%, I don't think they've expanded enough. And I cannot see myself being the only person who feels this way. Because I believe that baseball would make a lot of extra money from expanding the postseason so that they have 8 teams in each league, just like how the National Hockey League and the National Basketball Association have 8 teams in each conference make the playoffs. Instead of conferences, Major League Baseball, of course, has the National League and the American League. And as far as I know, both leagues actually have some rules that are different from one another. I believe there's one league where pitchers can hit the ball and can go up to bat, and in the other league, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure if I'm fully correct on this, but I believe in one league you have pitchers, you have a rule where pitchers are allowed to go up to the bat or up to the plate and attempt to hit the ball. And in the other league, pitchers can only pitch. Now, I think there may be at least one or two or even a few or multiple other rules that each league does do a little bit differently than the other. But I know that rule, and I'm pretty sure I know that rule for sure, where pitchers can bat in one league and in one league they cannot. And once again, if I am incorrect on that, please correct me because I'm not fully sure. But if I remember correctly, I think that is one significant rule difference between the American League and the National League. But with Major League Baseball, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you get the one wild card game, which is great to watch. A single game, a single elimination game where you have two teams fighting for their playoff lives to stay in. Playing one special game in front of a sold-out crowd, and it's a fight to the finish. Whoever wins moves on, whoever loses, their season is over. And the thing is that is exciting to see, but what I don't like about it is that if one team loses, their whole season is just over. Now, I'm not trying to make an excuse for teams that lose. But what I'm trying to get at is that a team could have an off day where normally they would beat the other team no problem and their season would be over. Now, obviously, it's their fault for losing, eh? But I don't like how after losing one lousy game, their whole season's done. Now, it's better, in my opinion, than them not getting a chance to move on at all. I think most of us can agree on that, but I just don't like that. And what I would like to see instead is I'd like to actually see 3 extra teams make the playoffs so that you have 8 teams in each league qualify for the postseason. Now, for those of you saying, well, that would extend the baseball season as a whole into November and potentially December, where it's freezing cold and there's snow on the ground in a lot of places. Well, here's what I would do to make up for that. Now, if baseball expands the postseason, which I think they should do, so that 16 teams in all of Major League Baseball, 8 in each league qualify for the playoffs, what I would do is at a bare minimum, I would cut the season down to 150 games in the regular season. Because here's the thing. Yeah, you're shortening the regular season, but instead of having multiple teams playing 12 games of regular season baseball in front of probably empty stadiums, which I have heard that baseball's been starting to have attendance problems as a whole in Major League Baseball. But you know what? Instead of having 12 games for all of the teams in Major League Baseball, where most teams would likely be playing in front of empty stadiums, guess what? You would now be having extra postseason games where all of the games would be in front of sold out crowds in big, massive baseball stadiums that could seat 40,000 plus people easily. So instead of a bunch of teams like, say, as an example, the Toronto Blue Jays playing in front of empty stadiums for an additional 12 games up to 162 games, well, instead, their season would be done at 150 games, and you would have teams like, say, the Oakland Athletics, who were eliminated in the wild card game this year, playing in front of a sold-out stadium in Oakland for at least 2 games. So if you cut back the regular season to accommodate more playoffs and an expanded postseason, you would have way more ticket sales, and you'd have probably way more TV numbers for sure. And on top of that, at the end of the regular season, you would have more fan bases wanting to watch baseball, and you would probably have increased ticket sales all around the board because you would have more teams that are, by the end of the season, fighting for a playoff spot. Instead of having multiple teams where you know basically by the All-Star break who's going to have a chance at the playoffs and who's already royally screwed, you would have more teams that have a chance to qualify, where at the end of the season, they would have more meaningful games to play. So you'd have more fans thinking, well, I want to go see my team because they might have a chance to make the playoffs this year. So you'd have better ticket sales. You'd have more fans wanting to tune into the games because they'd have more games, more meaningful games to watch rather than knowing that, well, my team's screwed, I'm not going to watch. And on top of that, all of the playoff games, I don't think I've ever heard of a playoff game in Major League Baseball that isn't sold out. But if there are any, please let me know. Now that I think about it, and please correct me if I'm wrong once again, I can't say it enough, but I think I've heard tales of the Tampa Bay Rays having playoff games where they weren't sold out or they had trouble selling tickets. Now, if that is true, then I guess I'm right, but if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. But for the most part, the baseball stadiums are full and sold out during playoff games. And if you had an expanded postseason and you had more teams that were able to make the playoffs, you would have more fan bases interested in the game or in their teams up to the end of the season. And where you would be taking games off of the league's schedule as a whole, the playoff games would be making more money and have way more ticket sales and more TV audience numbers guaranteed. And the thing is I believe 100% that the money made from an expanded postseason would more than pay for the half-empty stadiums and the 12 regular season games that, in my proposal, would be gone for an expanded postseason. Now, what I would do is, obviously, you wouldn't be calling them a divisional series and a championship series really anymore. Instead, it'd be basically quarterfinals, semifinals, league finals, and the World Series. But I mean, on top of that, I would even say that, for myself, I'd almost argue that, what you could do too, you could even cut more than a dozen games out of the regular season. You could probably cut about 20 games out of the regular season and make August the end of the regular season. And I think that a lot of people probably would be on board. I could be wrong. But I think people would rather have the regular season end in August if that meant that more teams had a chance to make the playoffs and you had an expanded postseason. And, if you left it the way it is now and you had a 162-game season as it already is, and you had an expanded postseason even beyond what we have now, then you would definitely most likely run into problems where, okay, now you're having the baseball postseason extend into November and potentially December, where the temperatures become extremely cold, and you're probably going to be playing games in multiple markets that have snow on the ground and possibly have teams playing in snowstorms. You do not want that. And that's why I'm saying what they should probably do is cut back at least 12 games off of the regular season. Now, to make this work, now that I think about it, they would probably need to cut back at least 20 to 25 games to make this a lot more feasible. I mean, you can't, and what I would do as well is for the quarterfinals, where you have 8 teams in each league playing in 4 different series, I would make those series continue to be best of 5s. That way they're shorter, and then that way the semifinals could be a best of 7. That would be a lot easier. The championship series could be a best of 7, and the World Series would, of course, obviously still be a best of 7, eh? But you know what I would even propose too? You could even have the semifinal round be a best of 5 as well, to make sure that it's not too long. Because if you're trying to fit in an extended postseason, having 2 best of 5 rounds would cut back potentially 4 games for each series. Or cut back 2 games off of each round for the teams playing. And that would save some time and make sure that you don't have the baseball postseason going into potentially the end of November, early December. So, I mean, in my opinion, or as some people's autocorrect would say, they're my oplon. The thing is that with Major League Baseball, I love playoff baseball, and I really do believe that an extended postseason would be a lot better than a 162 game long regular season, 1 wild card team or wild card game in each league, and potentially a tiebreaker game before that even, and a divisional series, a championship series, and a World Series. I mean, do I think the current format is fine the way it is? In my opinion, yes. And my reason for that is because with the current format, you have the World Series ending by early November at the absolute latest. But what I would propose is, and in my argument is this, I believe that it would be better for baseball to end the regular season by the end of August and have an expanded postseason that starts in September and is done right around the same time that the World Series ends now every year, by the end of October or very early November at the absolute latest. Now, my other argument is this. You would have more ticket sales, way more ticket sales. You would have way more TV audience numbers, which leads to even more revenue. And on top of that, instead of teams playing way more games in front of empty stadiums, you would have more full stadiums. You would have better attendance numbers even in the regular season, because you would have more teams that would actually theoretically be in the playoff hunt. There would be not just 5 teams in the playoffs, but with 8 teams in the postseason, you would have more teams competing for playoff spots. You would have more teams that were actually theoretically able to compete for a playoff spot until the end of the regular season. And what that would do most likely is that would most likely also increase TV numbers and attendance numbers at games, because you'd have more fan bases thinking that their teams actually have a chance to make the postseason. Plus, you would have more guaranteed fan bases and more guaranteed teams that would actually make the playoffs. So why have a dragged on regular season at 162 games where you could even take off just a dozen games and end the season by early to mid-September at the latest and have an expanded postseason with better TV numbers, better attendance numbers, and better revenues for Major League Baseball as a whole? I mean, I've been hearing that Major League Baseball overall has had attendance drops and lower ticket sales. And even, I think, if I remember correctly, possibly even lower TV numbers too. Well, With an expanded postseason, you would have more people watching baseball. For sure. I guarantee it 100%. Those playoff games would be sold out. So why have extra games for teams that did not make the playoffs this year, such as the Blue Jays, the Seattle Mariners, the San Diego Padres, and I could go on and on and on, when you can make the season shorter, give more teams an opportunity to make the playoffs, give more teams a chance to compete for a playoff spot to the end of the season, have higher ticket sales, higher TV audience numbers, and more revenue. For myself, I find it rather baffling. I think that even 150 games is more than enough for a regular season in Major League Baseball. I think it would be more than enough. And the idea that more fan bases would be able to watch meaningful games with their teams involved for longer, I think would be a huge gain for both baseball and for Major League Baseball's revenues. I think this has the potential to be a huge financial gain for Major League Baseball, and that's my argument as to why I feel that Major League Baseball needs to expand the postseason. Playoff baseball is the best. Even fans like myself that don't really follow baseball that much watch playoff baseball. And I don't know about you viewers out there, and if you disagree with me, I totally understand, and I can appreciate and respect why. And I respect your opinions, by the way, if you do. But in my personal opinion, I actually believe that an expanded postseason would have a lot of potential good involved for Major League Baseball. And I really do hope that instead of considering it down the road, they start to actually start to pave the way for it to happen, because I think it would be a great addition for Major League Baseball. And on that note, folks, I've been talking for almost 25 minutes, but I really do believe this is an interesting topic, and I thought that it was worth sitting down and filming a video for. And in my personal opinion, I think it's something that should be seriously considered. But with that, folks, I'm going to end this video on that note. I would love to hear what other people think about this. And with that, folks, I'm going to be calling it a wrap on this video, And with that, folks, take care. And of course, as always, you guys, bye for now. And I hope you have enjoyed this video. And once again, I would love to hear what other people think. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Bye for now.